Sheet Saber. We are going to be talking through tonight's NBA slate. It's we have a three-gamer, which feels nice, and it's a little different that we don't have to get as crazy, but they're still going to have to find ways to get these guys in. Sheets, any overall thoughts before we jump into game by game?
Yeah. First, I wanted to I'll get the sports betting take out right now. It's the same situation that we had last night. It ended up kind of falling apart late, but the concept remains the same. I do like Atlanta in game two at Boston. Typically, when a team just has a really, kind of a predictable, easy time of it at home as the favorite in game one, they can tend to kind of let down, thinking, oh, well, this is, exactly how we thought. We'll just finish it off at in game two, and then we'll just worry about, stealing one on the road, forgetting about game two. So I do like Atlanta plus the points here. So I figured I would just throw that out there. But aside from that, it's a normal, tough playoff pricing slate, and, we'll see if I can't improve upon my last couple of performances in this slate.
Well, I have to say, yesterday I really do feel like you got robbed because Brooklyn did what they could do. You know what I mean? They should have been there. They were leading most of the game, and I felt like you got robbed on that bet last night. However, on tonight's particular slate, I'm going to, for DFS and regular purposes, I'm going to think Boston is going to beat the hell out of them. I just don't think this is like a fair match. I just think that you're going to just see Boston roll them over in the series. Maybe Atlanta can squeak out a game at home. I don't think there's any real series here.
So what is that? So what does this mean to the average man? Does this mean that we don't want to play Tatum?
It means that I'm probably going to get away from some of those plays. I mean, yeah, they can go off, but so if you think the game stays close, I think you should be playing Tatum or Brown. But and I think they're fine even if you think it's a blowout. But I personally am going to play a little bit more of the blowout angle and probably be less exposed to this game than others. But that's just my take. It doesn't mean we can't play guys here. So who do you like from a DFS perspective?
From a DFS perspective, the top.
Pulling your screen up, or do you want me to do?
Oh yeah. Hold on a minute.
Yeah. We can make our dollar bet here, Sheets. That means one of us has to win.
Yeah, that's fine. What am I getting? 8? What am I getting? 8 or something?
10.
Okay. So I actually have three or four of the top players are coming from this game, all from the Boston side. Top play for me from this group would be Derek White at 5,300. Then I do have Tatum, and then Horford, and then Jaylen Brown. But I think that your point, I guess one of the points you're kind of alluding to is if you do want to play something like Tatum, you might want to try to run it back with someone from Atlanta. So with that said, it's hard for me to ignore the price on John Collins at 4,600. So that would be my just top value over there. I don't know if I could pay up for Trae Young tonight. So I guess that would be my favorite Atlanta guy would be John Collins. Favorite Celtics would be Derek White as a value-ish play, and then Tatum rates pretty well.
Yeah, that's how I've got this broken down in the way that I like it is to have one of White, Brogdon, or Smart. Smart will be the lowest owned for what it's worth. Brogdon will probably get I don't want to say the blowout run, but like the run when they're up 15 and leave them on the court a little bit in the fourth. So I'm good with those guys. I do like even with my feeling that Boston is going to control this game in the series. I still think that like Horford, Tatum, Brown, these guys are all still in play. They can still put up a big number this time. I actually think that Brown is my favorite. But I would include Horford into some build. I mean, you're going to see a lot of ownership, I think, on these guys. But I'm probably going to try to limit myself to 2 Boston guys. Maybe I'll have a lineup with 3, but mostly I'm looking at 2. DeAndre Hunter doesn't, look, they want him on the court because he has to guard these guys. He's not going to do much offensively. He is a value piece that I think that it's worth mentioning along with the Collins thing. But I have it I think taking one of Collins, Okongwu, or Capella is a pretty good idea. I kind of like Okongwu almost as much as I like Collins, and I think you'll get significantly lower ownership. So I think that's something I'm considering doing. And I have no problem if you wanted to do the Trae versus Tatum thing. It's just I'll just warn you, it's a little bit pricey. Maybe Trey and Jaylen Brown's a little bit better. But I'm sort of up in the air with what I want to do with the DeAndre Hunter and Bogdan. And I do think that Bogdanovich, it was nice to get him at 5% the other day. I think that he's one guy who actually was a little bit effective for them. So I'm going to include a little bit of Bogdanovich, but I'm not sure exactly how much yet. But yeah, this is a game that I think that, I think it has the highest total. It has the highest total by pretty good ways on the slate. And Boston's defense hasn't been very good. So maybe if you do like that game sheets, maybe it's worth making a game stack. In fact, I might even do that a little bit tonight, because I just think that if it does stay close, you have guys who are really, really reasonably priced to spend up for, with some potential value pieces if you get the right ones. My favorites being Bogdanovich, one of Collins or a Kongwu probably.
So Cleveland dropped their first game at home to the Knicks, and that puts them in a very, very precarious position statistically for the series. Yeah. Creating a situation where you probably want to play Donovan Mitchell. That's my analytics of this game. They're going to be, obviously this is a must-win in their minds. So what you're going to get is good defense from everybody else, and Donovan Mitchell, I presume, is going to take it upon himself to try to do his thing. So I think that's on a slate where there's no Jokic, or you know what I mean. There's none of those, or Embiid's. I think that you could afford to probably get Mitchell in, and I think that he's my favorite of the spend ups. And not only that, but if this game's like a 12, 14 point game, there no universe letting up steam. You know what I mean? Being down 0-1. So yep. I do like Mitchell. And then he's definitely not the best values from this team. I mean, like I definitely think that Mobley and Allen are two better, kind of point per dollar values, whatever. But I think that Mitchell is probably the guy that you want to play. And if you think that the game can stay close, I would play Randall on the other side. So this is probably the lowest total. I don't even know what the total is, but I would imagine it's the lowest total. But I know where the shots are coming from both these teams in this game. So Mitchell, Al, and Randall, I would have no problem playing those two.
Yeah, to be honest, I think I like Brunson better than Randall, like straight up. Like I think he's a better play. This is not a good match. I mean, this is a horrible matchup for Julius Randle. He got off to a good start the other game, and they just completely shut him down afterwards. I think that it's the worst matchup in the NBA. So I can't get to Randall personally. And I understand he's 8,600 and all that stuff, but I think if I was going to run it back, I'd be running it back with Brunson, who I actually like quite a bit. And I'm going to have to stick with my take on Randall. Not that he can't get there.
I can put in both.
What's that? I mean, yeah, maybe, but like and fair enough. But I'm more okay with the Brunson side of it. Although it's harder for him to get to the basket here too. So, Cleveland's a very good defensive team, as are the Knicks, currently constructed. Yeah. Get weird play would be Isaiah Hartenstein. Not even that weird. I actually think he's a reasonable play. I think he's a value that you should consider today.
What's the spread in this game? 7 or something?
The spread is I think it's less than that. It's like 5.5. But I mean, Cleveland is still inexperienced playoff wise outside of Donovan Mitchell. This is what I'm struggling with. Donovan Mitchell got his price lowered. He's 9,200 after putting up the highest scoring fantasy game of the playoffs. Is that right so far? 66 the other night. I don't know if Darius Garland can have another game like that. I've never seen Darius Garland play those kind of minutes and just do nothing offensively. And literally, he had 0 assists. This is a guy who he gets more assists than Mitchell. Like, I think they're going to adjust and play and go to Garland more. But I can't resist the fact that Mitchell's still not getting that much ownership. So I guess I'm going to have to go back to I have Mitchell or Garland as a priority, but I think that I might try to get Mitchell in there. It just seems like they're going to do that. My personal take is that Karis LeVert gets phased out of this series to some extent. There's no reason to play him. He's ineffective offensively and he doesn't play defense at all. So the guy who I would consider who would benefit from that being, that theory would be Cedi Osman or Isaac Okoro, who they want out there just to be able to guard Brunson. And he's a very good defender. So some combination of these guys I'm trying to consider, like which ones make the most sense. I think that if I have to side, and by the way, I could be totally wrong. It could be that Levert gets hot right away off the bench, and 4,300 seems like a steal. But I like the idea of taking the shot on either Osman or Okoro, and assuming that they do realize at some point this coach realizes, like, look, Karis LeVert ain't helping us any. He really isn't, unless he just gets hot, and they don't really need that type of heat check guy when you've got Mitchell and Garland. So, and even Mobley to that point. I prefer Mobley over Allen, but I think both are solid. So that's what I'm going with in this game. One of Mitchell or Garland. I like the idea of the Okoro or Osman to get a little different, and then one of Allen or Mobley. But I prefer Mobley and I prefer Mitchell as of right now. I might change my tune later and decide to go with Garland. And on the Knicks side, if I had to pick one, it'd be Brunson. But otherwise, it's very hard for me outside of the Hartenstein idea to like feel really good about Knicks plays, which I think it's going to be for everybody. So playing these guys at low ownership might not be a bad idea. Maybe taking a shot with Quentin Grimes getting more run or finally getting hot. And as you mentioned, maybe you're right about it. Like just Randall being sub 10% has me sort of thinking differently. But then again, you're only going to get like 10 or 15% on Brunson. But I like the idea of the Hartenstein. I can buy into the theory of why that would make sense. You have a team that plays double bigs, any sort of foul trouble. He played 21 minutes in the first game. That's really good enough for me at 4K. So I do have Hartenstein as a play, and then the Osman and Okoro. So I'll revisit my favorites when we're done with the next game. But that's sort of what I'm looking at tonight.
So I have a couple of thoughts on Phoenix LAC, because I think that getting the reserves right here is going to be it's going to help you, and the Phoenix thing is interesting because you know they were giving Okogie like all this run, and they decided they were going to start Craig, and Craig had a really good game, and to the point where Okogie didn't even see the floor. I think he made 3 minutes or 5 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
I imagine they're going to do the same thing. I just wonder if it reverses this. It can't. If they start.
I'll explain exactly what happened. So they did this during the season too. When they play the Clippers, they like to have a Torrey Craig as somebody who can guard Kawhi. They don't want KD guarding him except for maybe sometime down the stretch, which is exactly what happened last time. They ended up matching up down like the stretch in the fourth quarter. But other than that, it was Torrey Craig guarding him. That's why he's out there. Okay. The fact that he had an outlier game of performance, I'm still going to have interest in him because he's going to be on the court. But it shouldn't have come to any surprise that Okogie could be completely not play, basically not play at all in this one. I kind of and I'm struggling with what else to do, here, because I feel like, we almost saw a huge game out of, Durant had a huge half, and then it seemed like Kawhi did a pretty good job slowing him down. But I do think these Phoenix spend-ups are really tricky to try to get right between Booker, Paul, Durant, and even Ayton, who projects really well. But I don't really know, he's really a fourth option kind of a guy now. And Zubac actually plays reasonable defense. This is not, Plumlee out there. Oh, he'll be out there, some of it. So I'm sort of struggling with them. I do think that one of the Phoenix starters outside of Craig is definitely going to probably make some of my lineups. I am surprised that Craig is not projecting even better than he is. Just minutes-wise even, they've got him lower than I would have thought. The weird play here is the Landry Shamet. They played him 23 minutes in the last game. If he can get on the court and he can shoot himself into a reasonable score. And I'm looking for weird values because I want to try to get some of these spend ups right. So Shamet is on my list right now. On the Clippers side, obviously you could take Kawhi or Westbrook. And I think that Zubac is extremely reasonable. I have a nervous feeling that this game could just be that weird blowout second game after, the Suns are one of the biggest favorites, maybe the biggest favorite in the first round of the playoffs outside of the 1-8 games. And for them to go down in the first one, I could see them sort of storming back, but I don't know if they know themselves well enough to do that yet. So I am just like Eric Gordon, Zubac, Man, who's going to get the other run? I think Man is probably my favorite of the Clipper values. Man and Zubac probably. And I just am still undecided of what I want to do with Kawhi and Westbrook. I mean, talk about a must. If you want to, if Phoenix goes down 2-0 as the favorite to win the West, it's going to throw out the odds all over the place for the NBA title bets and everything, because they are. I mean, Phoenix is the favorite to win the West entirely, not just the series. Although that might be changing soon. So I'm sort of stuck on what I want to do here with the Clips, but I did like what Westbrook's activity level. He's not going to shoot 3 for 19 every game, and he still put up 43 fantasy points. 7,800 seems very reasonable. So Westbrook and Kawhi definitely on my list. And then Phoenix, I just think you need to have one of the start. Well, I don't think you need to have one of them. I want to have one of them. It just feels wrong to play Kevin Durant. Actually, he ended up with 63. Wow, he ended up way higher than I thought he did. It feels weird to play Durant ahead of Mitchell and of Tatum to me, but maybe it shouldn't. So I'm very up in the air on this one. I'll revisit this when I go live at 6, but this is the game I'm struggling with the most, and they're all tough. You know what I mean? But right off the bat, the ones who you want to prioritize for me the most, I think Derek. It's hard to ignore the Boston backcourt, but I like the idea of maybe playing Brogdon to get different, because Derek White's going to be like 70% owned. I think that Mobley over Allen these are like your sort of automatic plays. These are the chalky ones that I'm going with. Mobley, one of the Boston guards, probably for me, Brogdon. I still like Al Horford's price. One of Garland or Mitchell are definitely going to be in my lineup, whatever big lineup I play today. And that's all I'm really decided on right now. It's just I'm just struggling with it and trying to go through possible scenarios of ways teams will adjust. And I think you can count on Phoenix and Cleveland making some heavy adjustments. I don't know that Atlanta has the bodies to do it. I don't really know what their move is. But maybe what I do is I marry myself to this Bogdanovich idea, just because he's a guy who can actually get things going. And he showed real flashes in the last game when they had nothing else going for them. I actually think I have to double check, but I think he was one of the better plus minus guys they had. He played 27 minutes. That's plenty good enough for me. He played 27 minutes, shot the ball poorly, and still put up 28 fantasy points. I feel like that's the other priority guy that I'm going to probably end up getting to, and maybe playing him over Collins. You get like half the ownership or something like that. And yes, Torrey Craig is a good play, assuming that he's starting. But I wouldn't expect him to have I think you're playing him at 42 because he's a cheap option. I would expect him to be more like 16 to 20 fantasy points than 31 like he put up last time. But that's good enough with what we have here. Get weird, guys. I really like the Hartenstein idea. I really like the Osman Okoro, just sort of taking a shot in that they realize that maybe LeVert is probably not optimal for this team. On the flip side, if you play LeVert, you could get some blowout run with LeVert if the game goes that direction. So just really, really tough. NBA playoffs are tough, but what Sheets has up there right now looks like a really solid build, and actually enough off the board to where it can actually make some sense. And I love the idea of playing Terrence Mann as a speculative play. He was in there closing. They like his defense. So I think you might see him instead of Eric Gordon, depending on what type of game it is. If it's back and forth, I think you see Terrence Mann. I think if they're down, you see Eric Gordon. But I do think, and even still, they might both play with no Batum with Zubac. I think that's probably what you were more likely to see. So I'm into the Terrence Mann idea. So we actually have a lot of value options. It's about getting him right, and I will be much clearer on my thought process when we get a little closer to lock later this afternoon. Josh Hart is technically questionable. If there was ever a game to sit him, this would be the game. And if that happens, you want to play Quentin Grimes, in my opinion, and you want to mix in some more Knicks.
Boy, I was waiting for you to pause. I still haven't given my Clippers takes yet.
I'm so sorry, Sheik. I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. I think that you just run it right from your Clippers right into the summary. But
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
I figured I would just kind of let you roll, and you kind of like hit on it at the end there. You mentioned Terrence Mann. Remember, I was watching that game, and Powell's going to get his run, but he's just not going to take over a game. You always want him to when you play him, but he just doesn't. And then even down the stretch, they didn't close with him. They brought in Eric Gordon, I think.
Yeah, I think it was Gordon Mann on the closing unit.
But the guy that you hit on, I mean, Terrence Mann it seems to be the guy that I feel most comfortable with. You know, he's active all over the place. And he's not as shooting dependent as Eric Gordon. He's not as, I don't know, as Norman Powell. So I actually do like Terrence Mann as my favorite of the Clippers at 3,800.
I like it.
Yeah, so that would be my choice. And Kawhi, I mean, it's kind of hard to like deny what he does. But I don't know. Like, is he a better play than Mitchell? Like you were kind of.
Yeah, that's what I'm struggling with.
I don't
Same
know.
thing.
I just don't know. You know?
It would be with these speculative value plays, we can get multiples of them in. I mean, one thing is Kawhi is just so spectacular in real life. I mean, you watch him play with these guys, and I don't care what the fantasy numbers are. He looks like the best player. Like when he plays against Durant, when he played against LeBron back in the days, you know what I mean? He really does look like the best player when it's these times it matters. And you're getting 40-minute-plus minutes out of him. Without Paul George, are we overlooking this that maybe he's by far the best play?
I mean, you're looking at these two guys up on my screen, you know, Donovan Mitchell and Kawhi Leonard. The fact of the matter is that there are guys on Cleveland that can do stuff. You know what I mean? Like Garland could have a good game.
Mobley, Garland.
Mobley could have a good game.
Even LeVert could get hot. Yeah.
LeVert, if he gets in, could get hot. But the Clippers are really, honestly, a one-man team. You know what I mean? Like,
hold on, hang on. Come on.
I get it. Okay.
Westbrook can certainly put up numbers.
He can. Okay, he can.
He really can.
But as far as scoring points, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you're right.
Let's just say that I think Donovan Mitchell is a more balanced group around it than Kawhi does. But I do think that
maybe playing both of those guys.
Yeah, but the thing is, what I would like to do is, like I said, like I wanted to play Mitchell with either Brunson or Allen or Randall. I think I'd want to play Kawhi with either Booker or Booker Durant or Paul. But then again, like then you have a choice of three, which is hard, you know.
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with Ayton.
I guess.
I mean, I'm just throwing it out there, but he's 6,200. I don't love what they're using him like in the offense, but this price is hard to ignore. Like if he was 7,000, I wouldn't even be talking about him. But 6,200 is actually like bordering on value play town. Like
I'll tell you, there's some funky little values here. Like the guy you mentioned for Phoenix, he didn't really do much, but you put Landry Shamet on the court for 20x minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, he could score 30 fantasy points in the right world. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Why can't he be like Cam Johnson from last night? You know what I mean? I don't know.
Well, the only reason is that they have the four other scorers on the court all the time. That's the only problem. Like, or three of them on the court all the time. So,
well, how many minutes did Terrence Ross play? He played 4 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, he'll probably have one weird outlier game though in the playoffs. Maybe this is it. I mean, this if you like the blowout angle, maybe Terrence Ross just banging down,
or they dust off T.J. Warren.
At some point, that'll happen probably too. I don't think it's going to happen when they're down 1-0.
I don't think so. It's meant for the blowout, is what I'm saying.
And except for the blowout, but then he might only get the 8 minutes of the blowout, and that's it. You know, so it might not be like the
in 8 minutes will probably score 30.
But I mean, look, even if you wanted to play the other guys, like the guys, like if you use Bogdanovich, if you use Mann, if you use one of the Plumlee or Hartenstein, Plumlee by the way put up 24 and that's something the other night. You can get these in. It's not that there's good value. There's just speculative value that's probably good enough.
I'll tell you this: you give me and the Bogdanovich play sort of played out the way you wanted it to.
Exactly.
He just was 3 for 10. You know.
And he still put up 28. Well, I'll take 28.
28. I mean, these are between. Okay, let's review these again. So between Bogdanovich, these are like the value guys sort of. Like Derek White's gonna be obvious, right? So between Bogdanovich, maybe like LeVert or something, or and then Mann, Shamet. You know what I mean? Those guys. I don't think any of those guys are gonna be particularly high on.
No, I agree. I like the Mann. If I had to go with it, I'd go Mann. I try to decide between Bogdanovich and Collins or play both of them.
Ooh.
And then I would, and then you've got that the baseline value, and then I would try to get in one of Plumlee. Well, I mean, Zubac is 5K, but Plumlee, Zubac, or Hartenstein. I think all of those guys have the upside to get there. And we know Mitchell Robinson can get 2 fouls quickly, and that could be Hartenstein for, most of the half. And if he plays well, maybe part of the second half, or if there's a blowout. So I kind of like that angle. But it's a tough slate. I mean, this is what you get, and whoever wins tonight will certainly deserve it.
I'm about 50-50 for tonight.
Okay.
And that'll do it. I'll probably put up a hockey video at some point this afternoon. And
Okay.
then we'll take a look at the schedule tomorrow for whether we do live split tomorrow or not. Or we definitely have a PGA lineup build tomorrow. We'll do PGA tomorrow. We got all kinds of stuff coming up.
Yep, absolutely. Sounds good. Well, have a good one then, Sheets, and good luck to everybody. We'll see you guys at 6 Eastern time.